What is up, everyone? Azrael back with another music-related video. Another year down the bag. 2024 is over, so I thought I'd look over my drastically different and updated 2024 music spreadsheet. So I organize all of my music very neatly, and a lot of changes have happened to the spreadsheet from 2023 to 2024. I have everything organized from oldest to newest every year. So 1970, 1971, every album I heard, so on and so forth. And within each year, everything is organized from my highest rated album to my lowest rated album. Not only that, but I also have things organized from best year on average to the worst year on average. Most albums listened to least albums listened to for each year. Even best average score between artists' discographies. Now I have a new one, best genres, like the top 25 of all the major genres. And I even have one that's the best albums I've heard within a given year. So what is the best album I heard in 2024? This year I've heard 150 new albums, which for me is a record by far. I only have scored 100 of them, but that's still a lot of new albums. A lot of things have changed in my spreadsheet since the last time we looked at it. So let's answer some questions. What's the best stuff I've heard? What's the best year for music on average, at least in my opinion? And we can go from there. Unfortunately, the beautiful vinyl wall backdrop, which has changed a lot since you've last seen it, is gonna have to go away because my laptop doesn't work right now and my desktop is over there. So that's just gonna be what it is. All right, let's start. As you can see, a lot has changed with the sheet. I have a lot going on here. So as you can see, most importantly, every album now has album art. Everything I've rated, you can now see what it is without having to guess, basically. And also have a bit of an explanation for what's going on here. Everything is kind of broken up in this tab by year. This is the top row. The average score of an album from that year is the second row here. Number of albums scored is this third row here. The score of each individual album is in the fourth row or sixth row or eighth row, so on and so forth. And then the album art goes below it. So the score's on top, the album art's below. Pretty simple, in my opinion. But obviously for someone who's looking at this for the first time, it might be a bit overwhelming. So let's just look at this. This is chronological, sorted from oldest to newest. Let's actually zoom out a tiny bit. Everything's being a little laggy. There's a lot on here to process. There we go. There's a lot to process for my computer. And while also screen recording, so it's struggling a little bit. But let's see. I started the year off in 1948 for the sheet because that's when the LP was invented. That was when the album as we know it was invented, and it started with Frank Sinatra's first album turned into an LP. He released it in 46, but this is the version for the LP. It's the first album I've ever rated. We can go all the way across through the 50s, which I haven't listened to much 1950s music, through the 60s, where you see a humongous spike. 70s, it starts to taper off, but this late 60s, early 70s period is awesome. You can see here these deep orange scores, very high average scores, because that's kind of the peak of music, in my opinion. There's so much good stuff here. And then you go to the 80s, very low on 80s music. There's not much going on here. I hope to change that in the next year. 90s music, I listen to a decent amount, but this isn't like mind-boggling amounts. There's a lot of classic records missing here. Very happy to have added Jeff Buckley's Grace. Gorgeous album. Can't believe I haven't heard that until then. Move on to the 2000s, my least favorite decade for music. It kind of shows in the fact that there's not much going on here. There's not many records here. 2010s. That's the first year that I was really like alive and listening to music for, or in, I should say. So yeah, there's a lot going on here. This is my most rated decade. And then we go on to 2024, where I've heard a total of 25 albums from that year, which isn't a lot in and of itself. Like, yeah, I've heard 25 albums in 2024. Okay, that's whatever. But when you take into context that I've heard 125 other albums, it's easier to understand why it's only, quote unquote, only 25 for 2024. Relative to the sheet, 25 is a lot of albums for one year. But yeah, let's move on from there. I have another interesting little tab here, which shows the scores per decade. which I find interesting. Everything's loading so slow. My computer's dying right now. Yeah, as you can see here, if I haven't heard it, I have a question mark there. And if I have heard it, but I haven't rated it yet, it gets a little X above it. So that's what this bottom row is. If you want to quickly see what I want to hear and have heard but haven't rated, there it is. That's all of them. Now, let's check this out. So average album scores per decade, sorted oldest to newest, but let's be honest, more interestingly is sorted best to worst. So the best decade average score is the 70s with an average score of 108. If you guys know my rating system, you know that that is quite good. For those who don't, I guess the best way to quickly put it is I rate each album on a per song basis, giving it a score from -3 to +3. Unbearable, hateable, dislikable. Okay, likable, lovable, and favorites. That's like, I think the most basic way to tell someone how much you like a song or dislike a song. Hey, what are your thoughts on this song? I liked it. I loved it. I hated it. Like, it's pretty simple. And then you add all those points together, get an average album score. So 108 implies that a score of 100 implies that I basically on average liked every song. That's kind of what that would mean. So 108 is a really good score for an average decade, for an entire decade. 90s, 94, admirable score. 80s, 90 is shocking because I'm not a huge 80s guy. 2010s dropping down to 90 hurts because 2010s used to be my second highest, but I've just heard a lot more mediocre 2010s albums. It just hurt the average. Blah, 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 50s, 2000s, 60s is low, but also because I've heard so many 60s albums, specifically from like 1967, so I've went really deep down the rabbit hole. I mean, I've heard some albums that aren't necessarily that good, but I just did it because I like that time period of music. I find it really interesting, even if I don't love every song that I'm hearing. 2020s with the lowest average score, excluding the 1940s, which kind of don't really count because I've only heard one album. Yeah, the 2020s, lowest on average, and we'll talk about that later. Now, number of albums rated per decade, also interesting in my opinion. Most to least, 2010s 84, 70s 69, 60s 56, 20s 53, 90s 44, 2000s 36, 80s 36, 50s only 6, and 1940s 1. Not very many for 50s and 40s. I don't know if I'm really in the desperate to change that either. I'm just not that big in that time period of music, generally speaking, even though the average score is quite high for 50s. But yeah, let's talk about 2024, okay? Because these all weren't here last time we talked because I hadn't rated any albums from this current year, or last year, I suppose now, when we shot that first video. So let's talk about this best to worst here. I have it. Yeah, let's do that. Okay. Starting at the bottom. Okay. This is music that is just unpleasant in every facet, and I get that's the point, but that doesn't mean I have to like it, and I didn't. I really, really did not like it. It was really not enjoyable to listen to in any way. If it could smell bad, if you could put on earphones and a nose piece and get a full sensory experience, they would probably make it smell awful, like rotting corpse, because they just want it to be as gross and ugly as possible. It's like the same thing as looking at gore pictures. I don't want to do that. Some people do, and that's good for them, but I don't. I think it's gross and it's unpleasant. I don't want to look at it. I don't want to interact with it. And that's how I felt about this Nails album. It was horrible to me. They're very good at making very ugly music, though, so I got to give them props, I guess. Future mixtape was garbage. I'm going to make a video for my best to worst on 2020s. Eminem sucks. Kanye was disappointing. Brat is all right. It's funny, but it's not anything I'd take seriously. King of the Mischievous South is not that good when your introduction to Denzel Curry is Melt. See the future, melt my eyes, see your future, whatever that album's called. Shorty Greep, controversial, I know, but we'll talk about that more when I make the separate video. Magdalena Bay, it's a mediocre score. I mean, 42 means I liked about half the album, give or take. That's about right. I liked about half the album. It didn't blow me away. And same with Billie Eilish record. Godspeed You is tough for me to get into. I understand why people find it boring, but I also understand why people find it engaging, so I'm kind of straddling the line there. Doechii, I really liked her EP. I see a lot of room for growth. I see a lot of songs on there that I could grow to like even more, even love. But the same can't super be said for GNX, my most disappointing release of the year. We'll get into details on that on the separate video. Matt Kami, only heard that album a couple times. I don't have that much to say about it, but I enjoyed it. It's just that I like abstract hip hop like that. Jamie XX, awesome EDM album. I listened to a lot of EDM this year. It's not a genre I normally dabble in, but I did, and I enjoyed it. Hiatus Coyote, one of my favorite bands, modern bands that's still kicking, and it wasn't my favorite. It's actually my least favorite of their whole discography, but it was still very fun. Vince Staples, Dark Times, Plastic Death. I always call them Glass Animals, but it's not Glass Animals. What is it? I don't remember. Whatever. LL Cool J, shockingly good boom bap record from a guy who hasn't really been making solid projects in over 20 years. Yeah, In Dreams by Duster. Very good. I love Duster. Schoolboy Q's Blue Lips is so fun. I know it's a bit ignorant, but man, the production is immaculate. The Sacred Souls record. God, I don't remember what it's called. I heard so much stuff this year, but it's really good neo soul. They do a really good job of capturing that sound. Some of the songs even sound like they could have come off of What's Going On. I'm not saying they're as good as Marvin Gaye, because obviously Marvin Gaye laid the groundwork for them to kind of mimic, but they do a really good job at it. A very respectable effort. JPEG's new album was awesome. Tyler's new album was awesome. I can't wait to talk about that more in the upcoming video. And then, controversial, but I loved that new Fred Again album. I thought it was so pleasant, just makes me happy. All the songs make me happy. I enjoy listening to it front to back, back to front. There's one song that I skip, another one that sometimes I find it cheesy and I'm just not in the mood for it. But other than that, it's just a really solid project, front to back, solid project. I guess excluding one song, so not 100% solid, but the other songs more than make up for it, in my humble, strange opinion. I really can't explain. I guess I'll try to explain in the upcoming video, but yeah, Fred Again, number 1 of 2024, with an album that is rated very mediocrely on Rate Music. Now, we get it, 2024, average score 48, wasn't a hot year, but what was the hottest year for all of music as of 2024? Score updates. Well, that's going to be the year of our Lord. It's fighting me. 1977. Now, I'm kind of bugged by this because 1971 is clearly better, but there's 4 more records in 1971, so the likelihood of the average dropping is high. I think if I heard 10 records from 1977, the likelihood of that dropping below 1971 score is very high because they're only separated by 2 points. But 10 albums and an average score of 136 is truly incredible. You have Fragile, What's Going On, the Yes album, Metal, Tarkus, which is new to the list, Zeppelin 4, Master of Reality, Surf's Up, which is not what it sounds like. It's actually a very introspective art rock album from the Beach Boys. You have King Crimson Release and Funkadelic. Every single album on that list is cool and respectable. Even Funkadelic, which was only rated 57, still an awesome album. In fact, if I reheard it, I'd probably rate it even higher. And let's go. You got the 70s, 1, 2, 3, and the 90s break it up. To be fair, that year only has 5 scores. We go back to the 70s, the 70s again. So my top 6, 5 out of my top 6 are from the 70s. 2017, which is now the highest rated year of the 2010s, which kind of hurts because 2015 used to handily be my favorite year of modern music. But I've just heard more releases that brought down the average score. And they're not even bad releases either, because I think Fashion Week was not in it when I made that previous video. And I like Fashion Week. 62 is a good score. Same with Jamie XX's In Colors. That's a solid score, but it's not solid compared to masterpieces like Fresh and Cherry, T-Pab, Currents. So, we have 3 less albums to bring those scores down. The average is going to be higher. That's kind of all that happened there. 2017 is a solid year too, though. You have the Japanese House EPs. They came out 2015, 16, 17, but the last one, I think the fourth piece of the puzzle really came out in 2017, so I bundled it all into 2017. Contortionist, these are kind of more like my picks, not really super loved by rate music, but I really love that album. 444 by Jay-Z, Drunk, Jid's new album, second newest album, Damn, The Ooze. You got a lot of good stuff. Flower Boy, yeah, it's a really good year for music too. You have the Currents, B-sides even that were solid. Yeah, you know, not even a bad year. Let's see, what is my top 10 end? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 2000s. 2004 in my top 10 is really surprising. 9, 10, 2012. 2012 in my top 10? What? Bloom, Entombed, Macintosh Plus, Good Kid, Mad City, Channel Orange. Okay. And Joey Badass. Okay. Okay. And Tim Impala. Okay. And Flume. Oh my God. That is actually a really solid lineup of albums. I take it back. But let's go to the other end of the spectrum here. The only years that really have like low average scores are the past 3 years. Except for 2022, which escaped that. Yeah, 2022 has an average score of 95, which puts it around the middle of these years that have more than 5 albums rated. But 21, 3, and 4, 63, 59, 48 on average, not that hot. I think once you get more years closer to 25, which is my big goal for this year for music, is to listen to a lot more music from individual years, get them up to 25. I'm curious to see how they stack. Oh, my dog is calling. Because obviously you're more likely to find mediocrity when you dig deeper down. That's just true. If you hear the 5 best records of the 70s, you'll be like, whoa, the 70s is awesome. But once you've heard the 100th or 200th, you're like, okay, like I've heard a lot of bull crap by now. That's just how it is. Now let's talk about these here. These are sorted by how many albums I've heard and then best tours. So because I can't really say I know music that I've only heard 4 albums from a year from. Frankly, even less than 10 albums from a year, I can't say I'm an expert on it. But with the number of albums I've heard this year, I can't really justify only leaving years that have 10 or more albums rated, because that would be like 5 years and that's it. So I'm gonna leave it how it is for now. But once my average goes above like 6, then I'll remove all the years that only have 5 albums or less. And with me rating my 385th album, I'm at exactly 5 albums rated per year on average from 1948 to 2024, which is gonna be ruined once I add 2025, which is annoying, but whatever. So let's talk about these. 1976, 116. Yeah, as long as I listen to something that's okay, or not okay, but up on par with that like Steve Miller album, I think that would be a pretty high ranking year. Same goes for all these in the hundreds, but the problem is it's just knowing which albums are going to be that good. Then when we get to 3s and 2s and 1s, it's kind of arbitrary. I mean, yeah, I don't really know how the years are going to shape up because there's just not enough information there. Let's talk about those amounts though. Clearly, there's a far and away winner. 1967 has been absolutely dethroned by 2024. 25 records, which is really crazy when you have the sheet down here, because most of the years don't even show up here at all. It's pretty crazy. But let's go back towards the top where more albums pop up. You could see it's almost exponential. It really almost is exponential. Maybe it's the zip ratio again, but yeah, look at that. 1967 with 18, really fun year to listen to music. 2015, and then we go. All of these with 10 or more, I consider like really solid years for music, really good projects, except for 2023 and 2024. Maybe they'll age better, but I don't know. It's just hard because when you're listening to modern music, you're listening to what people expect might be good, but it probably won't stand the test of time. I mean, as much as I liked that Plastic Death album, is that really gonna be something people are talking about in like 15, 20 years? Probably not. But whatever they will be talking about is probably stuff I may have not even heard that's just gonna gain critical reception in the future. Let's keep going. Yeah, you can see a lot of pink. Every decade is sorted by color. A lot of pink and blue in these end sections here, because I just don't listen to a lot of 80s and 2000s music. I'll try to change that though. We'll see what we can do. We'll see what we can do there. Artists. let me do genres first. Artists is going to be a bit controversial. Genres. This one has a bit of a different layout, so let me zoom out. Rock. I have it all done, best to worst, and then one per artist. So you can see here, Close to the Edge, King Crimson, In the Court of Crimson King, and Dark Side of the Moon. Not only, and Park Psychosis, Hex. Not only are those the top 4 for rock, those are my top 4 favorite albums of all time. Spoiler alert. For the next video, or video after that, I don't know when I'm going to shoot that. But, yeah, we go from there. I mean, Terrapin Station, New Edition, top 10, if you limit it to one per artist, because Yes just dominates. Yes and Pink Floyd just dominate this otherwise. And even all the way at the bottom there, 123 is the lowest rated score. That's a really high score. Rap, hip hop, T-Pab, and Kendrick just dominates this. So for the one per artist is much more interesting because yeah, basically all of Kendrick's albums except for GNX have made the cut. I think maybe Damn didn't, maybe Section 80 didn't, maybe both of those didn't, but we'll see. I just actually scroll down instead of assuming. Mad Villainy just outside of the top 10, thanks to Kanye bumping it out recently after I re-listened to his whole discography. Yeah, Damn did make the cut, actually. Yeah, Damn made the cut, but overwhelming majority of Kanye projects did not. Teddy Bear Trilogy and Life of Pablo, that's it for my top 25. Wow. Okay, pop music. I haven't even heard 21 different pop artists. That's kind of crazy. But that'll definitely change. I'll definitely change that this upcoming year. Pop Best the Worst, though. Got a lot of Beach House. Gorgeous. I love Beach House. Tame Impala is kind of a weird pop rock blend, but I put them in pop. I'm sure it's not going to be too controversial. Lahai by Sampha was the best album I heard all year for a long time. But we'll get to what usurped it in a second here. Loved these two. I loved Lahai. It was an incredible album. Sade, it even overtook Sade. Wow, and I loved that album last year when I heard it in 2023, 2 years ago now. Oh, yeah, there's lots of good stuff in the pop section here. Pop is really good. Blonde, 13th if you have one per artist, 18th if you have, if you include all the other duplicates of artists. That's a hot take. It's barely in my top 20 for pop music, and a lot of people hail it as the greatest album of all time. I think that's ridiculous. Brat is actually my lowest rated pop album? Wow. I guess if that Tina Turner doesn't count as pop, it's more pop rock. Wow. Sorry, Brat. I mean, I didn't dislike Brad. I thought I was neutral on Brad, hence the score 1, because it goes into the negatives as well. But, wow, that is my lowest rated. All right, that sucks for Brat. Let's move on to metal. I haven't heard even 25 metal albums, so I don't have the second row for one per artist because no point. It's all here. You got Radom, you got that Contortionist record, a lot of Tool, a lot of Deftones. Yeah, a lot of good stuff. I also liked my first death metal album with Human Death. Album is Human, band is Death, technical death metal, really good stuff. I'm actually excited to listen to more of their stuff this year. EDM, electronic music, was pretty big on my hit list this year. I heard a lot. I think I tripled this list. Let's see how many of these are from this year. This one is, this one is, this one is, this one, this one, this one, this one, that one, that one, that one, that one. Yeah, that's majority of them, all from this year. And yeah, the scores are not as high on average. It's not a genre that I super am in love with, but I do respect electronic music now. Whereas before I would just say I'm neutral on it because I haven't heard enough. Soul music, I have not heard nearly enough soul. That has to change. Same with jazz, same with folk, reggae, and dub. I've listened to so much good dub this year, but I need to listen to more because it is such an underrated, amazing genre. I love dub. I'm not talking about dubstep, we're talking about dub, which is like reverb heavy, bassy, awesome, classic 70s, 80s reggae. It's so good. Funk, I'd love to hear more funk. Country, one good country albums, I'm satiated for now. Let's talk about subgenres though. New wave, I've heard a lot of new wave. Post rock, I just kind of lumped all Brazilian music together because I was just curious to see how it stack up. Maybe once I hear like 50 Brazilian records, then I'll divvy it up more, but for now this will do. Some spoiler alerts in the top Brazilian albums because, oh my god, I heard a lot of good Brazilian music this year. The only album that is not from this year, I believe, is the Gets Gilberto and the Clube da Esquina. Everything else is new to me in 2024. All amazing records. I'm so happy I've been digging into more Brazilian music. I am half Brazilian, and Brazil's made such incredible music. I can't believe I've been sleeping on it for so long. Punk rock, I don't even like punk rock. So let's just not even talk about it. Album of the year. Let's go to the bottom, because no spoilers. So we got a lot of stuff here, a lot of Outkast, some psychedelic records, some Flume, 9 Inch Nails, some great soul records, all the early Beatles records. I've now heard every Beatles album, even the crappy old ones. Edward Electrics, which is way out of my wheelhouse, but I thought it was interesting. And we have the worst album I heard this year and the worst album I've ever heard. Actually, most of the worst albums I've heard this year, just because I was digging way out of my comfort zone this year, and I don't regret it at all. 156, negative 156 is insane, you guys. For years, my lowest rated album was 13. And then it was my MCR, like negative 27 or something. Now I have a negative 156. Yeah, that new Future mixtape was garbage too. Blady, that first album, not my thing. I found it very annoying. Eminem, don't even get me started on Eminem. Please don't get me started on Eminem. Now everything here is technically more good than it is not. Let's go. That like 3-hour Grateful Dead live concert that I heard for some reason. I love this vinyl. I own it. It's my favorite vinyl that I own. But the album itself isn't like spectacularly good. It's just a gorgeous vinyl. Can, Death, Slint, freaking James Brown, some Bandcamp, like more underground stuff. Hell Mode, Brockhampton, like I was all over the place. You're gonna see a lot of Grateful Dead though, because that was kind of my band of the year. Grateful Dead, Grateful Dead, Nick Drake. My God, how have I not heard Nick Drake yet? That was an incredible, beautiful folk album. I heard a lot of Cocteau Twins this year as well. A lot of psychedelic rock. There's more with Pop Art West Coast Experimental Band, I think is what it's called. Stan Getz, her gorgeous jazz album. More Steve Miller Band, their early psychedelic rock stuff, which is very underrated. More Grateful Dead, Brazilian music, some prog, Steve Miller, Grateful Dead, Brazilian music. Some prog. I thought I could keep the loop going, but it already fell apart here. Brazilian soul music, incredible. Now we reach the top 25 of the year. Cherry Bomb just missing out. Blue Lips, Peg, Asia by Steely Dan with the song Peg on it. Incredible album, my God. I haven't heard every Beach House album yet, which is insane because they're my favorite modern artist. But yeah, every time I listen to it, I like it. So why don't I just finish it? I have one left. JPEG in 20th, Gais Guevara, really cool JPEG influence, but more poignant and more lyrical. I really, really like that record a lot. Some dub, King Tubby, like that's as dub as it gets, and it was so sick, and I really want to own it on vinyl. Chromacopia, 15th best album I've heard this year. Grace, 13th, and Grace has room to grow. Like I could see myself loving every song on that album at some point, except for one. I don't remember which one it is, but it's shorter and it's just kind of not as fulfilling to me. Talk, it's gorgeous. More Cocteau Twins, more Brazilian classics. We're in the top 10 now. Raw Band made the top 10. Really, really fun, danceable 80s pop. So fun. Or funk. Really more so funk. Synth funk specifically. 10 Days in 6th best album I've heard this year. Lahai 5th. Lahai only 5th is crazy. And then Aswad, New Chapter of Dub. Such a cool record, but not as cool as Tarkus, which same score but slightly higher decimals if you want to get that technical. And then let's just reveal the top. Lu Boschis made what might end up being the best album I've heard since 2021, maybe even since 2020, because I see so much more room for that album to grow. Whereas, unfortunately, for Terrapin Station, which is a god tier record, I love Terrapin Station. It's in my top 20 of all time, and it's the best Grateful Dead record by far. I will stand by that until I die. That Terrapin Station medley and Estimated Profit are both the best studio Grateful Dead songs of all time. They're both on the same album. Are you kidding me? But yeah, I see even more room to grow for Via Lactea, which is the Milky Way in Portuguese. And dude, that Lo Borges record was the fourth from bottom last record I heard for the whole year. What are the chances of that? I heard it December 28th. And let's wrap it up. Let's go to the artists. Let's be controversial. So this first little half is artists who I haven't heard more than 3 records of, so I don't even count it. But everything past this point has 4 records or more. Starting with the GOAT, Kanye West, with my lowest average discography. I haven't even heard all those albums. I haven't heard Donda 2 or Watch the Throne, which I think would bring his average down even more. But I like Kanye. I listen to Kanye a lot. He's always in my top artists, unfortunately. But if we're just talking about consistency across albums, he does not have that. He does not have that. But his top 5 albums are so good. I listen to these albums quite frequently. And even his top 7, I know it's a random number, but those top 7 albums are all good, but he just doesn't have that consistency. Steve Miller Band, I only heard 4 out of 17 albums, and I don't plan on finishing that discography anytime soon. I might hear The Joker next year, or this year, I guess now, and see, make it 5 out of 17. But yeah, I really liked, well, I guess I didn't, right? Because these scores aren't really that high, these bottom 2. I enjoyed my time with their early records. It's fun psychedelic rock. It's just nice to listen to. I love psych rock. Grateful Dead, even though they were my band of the year, their average score is not that good, 69. And yeah, a lot of their albums hover in this 50s range, because I'm not huge on the Americana bluegrassy folk rock that they did for Working Man's Dead, for Hotel from Mars. And I don't like their early, really bonkers off the wall psychedelic stuff. But once we talk about mid to late 70s period, we're talking gold. I like Shakedown Street a lot. It's a really fun record, but it's kind of inconsistent. Then we have American Beauty, probably the best folk album, folk rock album that I've ever heard. Blues from Allah. Actually, I'll take that back, because Wake of the Flood is the best folk rock album I've ever heard. Then Terrapin Station, which blows it out of the water. Double the amount of points between the two of these. I loved that album. All right, King Crimson, tied, but I've heard more albums, so I'll give them the edge there. It's just this 80s, 90s stuff here. I know it has merit, and I do respect it, but I just don't love it. And if you're confused, you can read here, but this column here is the best to worst, and the other one is chronological. Hence why the years are here and the positions are here. You'll see. I haven't actually finished organizing this page yet. I'm sorry, guys. It might be confusing. Best to worst for JPEG with an average score of 72. Devin Hendrix. I don't even remember that. The Ghost pop tape. I know a lot of Gen Z teens and young adults really love this record, but I didn't get it. It just sounded like lo-fi ambient pop being played in another room with very overdone auto-tune, mumbling about being depressed. I'm not depressed. It doesn't resonate with me at all. But man, I love these top 2 records. Whoa, that can't be right. His new album has officially got a better score than LP. Huh. I don't know how I feel about that. I'll have to re-rate LP next year and see if that remains true. But for now, his newest record is his best, according to my rating system. Fred Again. I only haven't heard his ambient album. We'll see where that puts him after I hear it. But yeah, he makes solid, fun, like hard to hate house music. It just sounds nice. It's nothing too showy. It's just personal and nice. Led Zeppelin. We have the Beach Boys. I only added Surf's Up this year, but I did like that record. As you can see, they're third best of all time of the 5 I've heard out of 28, and I have no interest in hearing any of this stuff past like 1972. And there's a lot past 1972. All right, Tool. I didn't hear any Tool this year, but good band, high average score. Radiohead. I said I'm gonna try to re-rate, some Radiohead albums. I did not get to it at all. The Ben's score is going to increase because I changed the score for one of the songs the other day. I just didn't put it into my sheet yet, so it's inaccurate, but I still don't think it's going to be higher than the King of Limbs, which is kind of a hot take, but I don't care. I like King of Limbs. All right, Tyler, the Creator. All of these are new to the sheet now. I didn't hear these albums for the first time, but I rated them all for the first time. Other than Call Me If You Get Lost, I rated them all for the first time this year. And we have basically every album's better. Every new album is better than the previous one. Except Cherry Bomb's a bit more interesting to me, so I have it a little bit higher than Igor above that, which obviously I shouldn't need to talk about that. Smiths, already heard all their stuff. That's never going to change. They're never going to release another album. So Pink Floyd, I did add Amagama, which did not help their average score at all. It's my second least favorite. Some of these numbers changed. Final Cut went down. That album sucks. And this one went down and then went back up, so it's back to where it was. But I like my order. I think my order is pretty damn near perfect. And if you disagree, I question you. Okay, Animals. Okay, you could switch Animals and Metal. I would not be offended by that at all. I just slightly disagree. The Beatles. I still have not rated those first few albums because I'm scared to, because it's going to tank the Beatles' average score. And I'm just not sure I have the heart to do that to one of my favorite bands of all time. Tame Impala. Cocteau Twins now quite high in the list. 7. Yeah, they make beautiful music. I was blown away by how gorgeous this record was. That was a super solid, peaceful, lovely record. Bob Marley. I did not add anything to the Bob Marley. I think I added Adrenaline to the ratings, but I have heard Adrenaline a long time ago. It used to be too heavy for me, but now I love that record. I can't believe I used to not like that record. It is awesome. Top 3. And then we have Yes. And nothing changed there. It's just still all good. Hiatus Coyote? Wow, very high. Jesus, they need to release more music because that is really high. And for only having released 4 albums, I feel like it's kind of unfair, to be honest. And then Kendrick, Only, usurped by the one, the only, Beach House. Gorgeous, beautiful, lovely music. And this Devotion did not drop the average really much at all. So that's it. A lot. As you can see, a lot has changed since 2023. So, yeah, and a lot's going to change in 2025. I know I'm going to listen to another at least 150 records. Might even shoot for 200 if I'm feeling really zany. But yeah, if you guys want me to go into any specifics on any of these albums, maybe review whole albums, I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to break this stuff down more. I could even make a video explaining my highest rated years, my highest rated decades, and all this in more detail. Instead, I just did it in one giant mega video because I hate myself and I like when people don't watch my videos. But yeah, it's been fun. Peace out. Cheers to 2025.